According to McKinsey.com, non-personalized communications pose a business risk in a low loyalty environment. Times are changing, and customers expect you to have personalized sales promotions, personalized offers that are available to your customers. And if you're not personalizing your content, you're losing out on revenue and you're losing out on sales. So that's why we're talking about this topic today, using personalization to drive conversion and increase revenue. I'm Zach Katz, and this is WP Product Talk.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights in product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Welcome. Hi, I'm Zach Katz, and I'm from Gravity Kit.
And I'm Amber Hines from Equalize Digital.
And today we're talking about using personalization to drive conversion and increase revenue.
And that is why we are super excited to have our guest, Paul Halfpenny, here today. Hi, Paul.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well. Would you like to introduce yourself for everyone?
Oh, scary time. So I'm Paul Halfpenny. I'm the founder of PersonalizeWP. I'm also the CTO and co-founder of Filter, which is a WordPress agency.
And Paul, I'd love to know what the background story is for PersonalizeWP. Like, how did it come to be?
That's a really good question, isn't it? But it's got its roots back in COVID. So I've been working in digital for a long time, 20 years plus. And over that course of that time, we've worked with a number of different platforms and CMSs, Sitecore, Episerver, Kentico, WordPress, Umbraco, you name it. We've done it. And what we did with all of those platforms is most of them had a personalization component built into and baked into core. But WordPress doesn't. And when COVID came along and we were all locked away in our houses in March 2020, we decided that we didn't want to furlough our team, which was the term used in the UK for, letting your team be paid but do nothing. What we wanted to do was keep them busy. So basically we brainstormed a couple of things and went, right, what can we do? What can we work on? What can we learn? And one of those ideas became a little plugin that we called WP DXP, which is an absolutely terrible name because nobody uses the term DXP anymore because everybody hates it.
Yeah, wait, I don't even know what DXP means.
It stands for Digital Experience Platform, and it was trendy like 5 years ago. So every CMS used to be a DXP. And so we thought, hey, we've got this block editor thing that Matt was talking about, and I went to Berlin WordCamp in 2019, and I was like, okay, block editor's the way forward, Gutenberg's the way forward. Let's see if we can do personalization using the block editor. So we set out creating our first WordPress plugin. We'd never done one before, and we kept ourselves busy. And by the end of the summer, probably September, we got something that we could show and hide content based on a couple of different personalization rules. And so that trundled along for a couple of years, and we were like tweaking it and doing things with it, but not really publicizing it or promoting it. And then we, at WordCamp Europe last year in Athens, we decided to pitch for some funding from Amelia Capital at their booth, which was a very exciting experience, very Dragon's Den for people that have watched that series. And they said yes.
Tank in the US.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we had 10 minutes, and they asked a couple of questions, and we talked about personalization, all the benefits of it, and what we were doing and where we could see the future of it, and how really it wasn't in WordPress core. And we thought it should be something that WordPress does because every other CMS does it. And, as an agency, when we go into pitch against other CMSs, we find that that's one of the tick boxes that is missing. So we got the money. We rebranded the plugin as PersonalizeWP, and earlier this year we launched it.
And why is personalization so important? And What do you gain by having it in WordPress? What is personalization?
What is personalization? So I think there's a pretty standard definition for personalization, which is understanding the needs of your customers or your website visitors by understanding their behavior and then basically giving them what they want. So, personalization's been around for a long time now. It's, as I said, it's in most other platforms. But what it does is it helps to drive conversion ultimately, which helps to increase your revenue. So if you can give people an experience that is more aligned to them, what they're expecting and what they want and what they need, they are more likely to buy from you. So that's why personalization's important. And obviously, when the web first came out, it was a pretty static, emotionless experience. And I think over time, that's become closer to what to that relationship that you used to have when you could walk into a shop and everybody used to know your name, and you know that you want a tin of beans and they know where you've come from and they know where you live, and and so we want to try and get back towards that.
I love that analogy, actually, like creating the hometown feel on your website that you might have if you went into a small restaurant or shop. That's great. Can you share a little bit like what kind of information can be personalized? I know you just mentioned like your name, but what other things do you see typically being personalized on, websites or an email copy or wherever personalization might be happening?
Yeah. So the typical ones, and we like in our plugin, we have a bunch of preset rules out of the box. So location, that's a key one. So where are you in the world? So, you're visiting this website, but are you from the UK, from the US? Are you from Spain? Are you from France? Understanding where they've come from. So by referrer. So, did they come from Google, or did they come from your Facebook group, or did they come from an email? And actually, you're probably going to want to change the content based on where they come from and where they know.
So this is more than just being like, people in Texas like you like this thing, right? Like fill in the blank. You're talking more than just like a Mad Libs kind of approach.
Yeah, and sorry, I was just going to say what we try and do with Personalized WP is track you around the website and understand who you are. But there's a bunch of information that's not just about tracking that we can understand. So if we can understand where you come from, if we can understand, by that I mean what country you live in, so maybe your language preference or your time zone, what time of day you're visiting in. So you coming in the morning, you coming in the afternoon, you coming in the evening. That's going to have a different response. Whether you've come in from a link on an email, whether you've come in from a post on a Facebook group or from social media, all of that information is really helpful to build up a picture of who you are. And then obviously as you do more on that particular website, and as we understand your behavior, and that behavior might be you've gone to the homepage and then you've gone to a product page, or maybe you've gone to the shipping page, or maybe you filled in a form, or maybe you purchased a product, then we can build up a wider view of who you are, and then we can serve you content or nudge you towards making a conversion.
And where do you, having gone down this path, and I'm somebody who installs a tool and gets overwhelmed and ends up not using it. So, because something like personalization, there are infinite things you can tweak and so many different ways you can set up segments that seem to make sense at the time. How do you simplify it? What is low-hanging fruit for people when they're considering doing personalization? Where do they start?
Everybody goes too deep too quickly.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the first thing. So what we noticed when personalization was a big thing, like 10 years ago, for instance, when all the major platforms were embedding it into the CMSs, actually nobody used it, and we were implementing Sitecore at that time, and you had to like have a 20-person team to understand it and implement it, and then nobody did it. And I remember the sales reps coming out trying to teach us and educators on how to use it, and that's not really the way that it works, because actually you do get yourself into those ever decreasing. So you just got to keep it simple, right? So you've got to understand what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. And most of the time, you're trying to, as I say, nudge people into making a conversion. So what sort of personalization are you going to do to be able to achieve that? So a lot of personalization ultimately comes down to, you did like this, how about this? Or we've noticed that you've come back for a second time. Can I give you an offer to make a purchase? Or other people that like this also like this, or you're searching for this type of content, have you considered this as well? So I'm not sure that totally answers your question, but try and simplify it.
I feel like, I mean, that kind of goes to this, like, why should we personalize content and why this is important for product owners. Do you have thoughts about that, Zach? Like, why WordPress product owners need to think about this?
Yeah, I do. Knowing your customer is the most important thing for any business. And so it's funny for me, the act of personalizing content is an act of business analysis that I don't like doing. I don't like thinking about customer segments. I don't like thinking about the funnel, like a top of funnel, bottom of the funnel. It takes a lot of thinking for me to get to understand the customer and put them into think about the customers in ways that is analytical, so that I can act on that. But every single time I do it, it results in breakthrough understandings. It results in more revenue and more sales.
We all like more sales.
Yeah. So even a simple act of like, who is buying my product and why? Asking that question is the first step in personalizing your content, personalizing your sales messages, and then implementing something like Personalized WP is the next step in communicating to your customers in a way that reflects who they actually are and what they actually care about and why they're actually interested in your product. So it's really a business operation for me, even more so than a marketing one. Like, knowing your customers is a very deep message. How about you, Amber?
Oh, go ahead, Paul. Did you have a follow-up thought before I chime in?
I was just going to say, it's just so it's so easy to forget the basics when you're doing marketing.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to go, I need to write content, because that's going to drive people to my website, and what that means is I'm going to sell more. And it's actually, understanding personas is the most important step first. So understanding who your different groups of customers are, and then breaking them down, and then being able to look at each group of customers individually and then write content for them, and then work out how you can nudge them into converting. That's what I was going to say.
And do you write personas actively? Like, do personas before you create the segments in Personalized WP, for example? Like, how is that something that you do?
We don't do that. We do that as a marketing function, or as an agency. So as an agency, we go into clients, and we always start off, and as part of our pitch deck actually was to start off and we talk about the types of customers that a business might have, and therefore our UX and UI designers will build the site around those groups of customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think if any WordPress product owner hasn't gone through the process of creating personas, and what do we mean by personas? It might be good to define that, because if someone's sort of new to this, they might not know what that means. Like, it's not a broad, like, e-commerce store owners will buy my plugin, right? Like really specific example of a person, their job role. Like, is it the marketing developer? Is it or the marketing person? Is it the developer? Like, is it who is it that would buy the plugin? And what are their goals? What are the challenges that they're experiencing in their role that would make them go and seek out your WordPress plugin? And then what is the solution that your plugin delivers? And then that way, when you have this full picture of who the person is, then you know how to write copy that speaks to that person. And probably you want, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about this internally, like, but we have maybe like 4 like specific things that we're like, these are who we're targeting, and we need to speak to them in our emails, in our copy. in the events that we do, like all of that kind of thing. But I think if you haven't, as a product owner, gone through the process of doing this, or you don't know how, then maybe that's where you find like someone like Filter or another marketing agency to help you do that. Because I do think that's really fundamental to this personalization, is understanding who you're talking to.
Yeah. And I think this might be a good time to transition into story time, where we tell stories of personal experiences. And this conversation is making me think about some basic personalization that we might do without realizing it. For example, we send out different emails to people based on different license levels that they have. And so if they have access to everything that we have for sale, we don't need to upsell them. And that is,
Yeah.
and if we're trying to upsell them and they already have access to everything, that would make me frustrated and say, well, I expect that you know this basic thing about me as a customer. Why are you trying to sell me stuff? I have access to everything. So,
well, or even like sending those people that are already on a subscription, maybe a full price subscription, and they're at your highest tier, Black Friday emails is a really good way to get them to cancel and then buy for 50% off or whatever your discount is, right? So definitely that's some segmenting that you want to think about.
And so we do some basic segmenting in Gravity Kit, and we also do track using WP Fusion when a customer visits a page, for example, Gravity Math, one of our add-ons, and they spend a certain amount of time on the page. We track that and we tag that in our CRM so that it says like this person might be interested in this product. And so when it comes to times when we are running a sale, we can email that subsection of users and say, hey, we noticed you might be interested in this. Here, we're having this sale. And so I think that one of the goals for personalization for me is to provide people the information that they want. It's not a sales tactic in the sense that it's pushy. It's a sales tactic in the sense that you're putting something in front of people at the moment when they're ready for it, and only the products that they might be interested in. And finding that overlap might be the key to good personalization. Am I on the right path, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's like putting it's like putting your arm around somebody and giving them a hug. It's going, it's all right, I understand you. This is what you need. Here you go. And then nudging them along the way. And I think if you can make people feel like they're understood, then it's half the battle, and understand what they want. Because I think a lot of people spend a lot of time on it. I can't be the only one that goes to Google and then types in something and then goes to a site and doesn't get quite what you want, and then goes to another site and doesn't quite what you want. Actually, it's really nice to feel like somebody understands what you're after. And I think that, the thing that it's not quite, I guess it is personalization, but the thing that always occurs to me is my car. When I get in my car, it says welcome, Paul, and I adjust my seat to the right setting, and it's got all the right settings for my driving on as well, and that just makes me feel comfortable.
So I'm wondering if you'll allow us a little peek behind the magic curtain. Would you be willing to tell us, with your plugin, PersonalizeWP, what you personalize on your web? I'm assuming you use it on that website, and everyone should go visit that website. It's a very nice website. I was on there today downloading your ebook. But would you tell us, because I'm curious, like what the person who makes personalization like what you think is one of the most important things to personalize on a WordPress plugin website?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Tell us all your secrets right now.
As with all product
Zach and I won't tell
owners,
anyone, we promise.
Doing enough of it. Yeah, okay. So we're not doing enough of it, but what we are doing is tracking visitor profiles around the site and understanding who's coming to our site and understanding where they're coming from. And that's what we're using it for right now. So we're tracking your visitors. When they fill in a form, we build a visitor profile for them so we can see and understand the way that they're going through our site and how they're getting there. So what we're doing is, for every page that you go to, if you do for a page visit, we're tracking that on your visitor profile. if you are
So is that
if
like
you
a
submit
cookie?
a form. We're not using cookie, we're using browser local storage, because cookies
Okay.
are going to die at some point, so we're not using cookies.
We'll have to follow up on that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So you use browser local storage. So I came in off of Google,
Yep.
and I went and I filled out your ebook download form.
Yep.
Did that like create a record in some CRM, and it took whatever information you had in my browser storage and passed it via hidden fields over there?
We're not taking a load of information from your browser storage, but what we are doing is in WordPress, in the visitor profile, we'll build you a visitor profile. Until you give us some information, you're anonymous. So we don't know who you are, but we will record your time of first visit, and you will record your time of your last visit, for instance. When you fill in a form, or if you bought a product, for instance, we would update that visitor profile with that information. So if you gave us your name and your email address, which I know you did, that would then be attached to your visitor profile, and we would be able to look back through how you got to that point. And as you are walking around the website and you're taking different actions, we will be assigning a lead score to you, and we would be placing you into segments. So you're from the US, so you will be in the US segment. That will be automatically applied to your visitor profile. You've completed a form, so you'll be in the form submission or completed form segment. We will have a lead score associated with your profile to show that you're engaged with our content. And all of that builds up this profile of you that's just going to follow you around. It's very similar to what people like HubSpot are doing, right? But what we're doing is doing WordPress native rather than taking you off to a separate platform.
So you know how in the early 2000s, we used to build websites where the H1 on the homepage was like, welcome to our site. I feel like we need to go back to that. And the next time I visit your website, I want the homepage H1 to say, welcome back, Amber. It's good to see you. Like, would that be good? Or do you think that would just scare people away?
No, Paul, what's the balance between personalized and creepy?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Like, would that be cool, or would that just make people be like, what the heck? Why do they know?
So I think, it comes down to context. So some people, and everybody's got different levels of how creepy they find it. So we've actually got a setting in the plugin that says just always anonymize these profiles and don't take the personal data, because some people just don't want that personal data. They're worried about GDPR or PII or anything like that. So there's a setting in that allows you to do
use the
that.
plugin to fill people's names in?
Yes.
Okay. So that is, or like their company name or something, like how we can help Equalize Digital. Like you could do something like that.
I think what will be good for in finding that balance is the ability to go, welcome back. So because we know that you came previously, and because we know that you've got a high lead score, and we know that you've downloaded a certain book, what we'd probably do is try and go, we've got some other ebooks. Do you want to go and download those as well? Or do you want to look at some of our services? Because we understand that you've come back. So we don't want to do the creepy thing of going, hey, we know your name now. We know where you're coming from. We know where you live in. But what we're trying to do is gently
here's your address.
Yeah. I've got a SWAT team going around. What we're trying to do is gently persuade you to read more of our content and trust us. And go, look, you probably found that interesting. The fact that you've come back indicates that you're interested again. So your lead score's gone up a bit if you go back. We're going to show you some different content based on the fact that you probably like that other content, and we're going to show you a bit more about our services, and we'll understand a bit more about you. So I think that's where the balance is.
And Paul, that's for a free ebook.
Yeah.
Give me that revenue. Give me that sweet revenue. What are you doing? How are you turning personalizing Amber's submission for a free ebook into
make me buy your plugin?
Sale? Yeah,
make me buy it. So I don't think we're doing anything for that right now, because actually our e-commerce is quite simple. So where this e-commerce works really well in terms of personalization is where you've got multiple products. So you can do upselling, you can do cross-selling, you can nudge people with different products in perhaps the same or different categories. So that's where it works really well. So if you're running an e-commerce site, if you're running a company with lots of plugins, say Bontu, for instance, loads of plugins, right? you're going to be able to cross-sell and upsell based on the fact that you know that somebody's returning to your site. They've logged in, you know who they are, you're going to show them something else. You also, perhaps they'd added something to their basket previously, but they didn't commit. You're going to show them and offer a discount to get them over the line. So I think that's where it's got the most value. But on our site, it's one product, it's one plugin right now. So we don't use it in that way.
And Amber, what's your experience with personalization?
Yeah, so a little bit. On the really basic personalization, our previous agency website, we had built up at the top when you came on the homepage hero, we had basically a 2-field form that said, I'm with the drop down and I'm looking for with a drop down. And depending on what you selected there, it completely changed the whole rest of the content of the homepage. So it would show you different case studies based on to match your industry. It would show you different blog posts in the blog section, like a lot of that kind of stuff. And that was like our beginner experimenting with that. We didn't really roll much of it throughout the site. I think we did use it to reorder case studies on the case studies archive, but we didn't hide. It's just we put the ones based on their industry like up at the top. So we did a little bit of that. But it wasn't really doing like logging beyond the initial, like they told us who they were. And that's something that we've been thinking about re-implementing as we're getting ready to build 2.0 of Equalized Digital. Like maybe not with 2 drop downs, but we've been talking about having just like a button or a series of buttons with a few different of those personas that if they click that, then we can throughout the site, have messaging that matches or like surface content more easily. Like you were talking about, like, how can we show them things they actually care about versus stuff that's not really relevant to them? Or like, if they're a content creator, they don't really need developer level tutorials, right? Like that kind of thing. I had a lot of conversations with Brendan Dunn. I don't know if either of you know him. He has a company called Right Message. I met him at Cabo Press last year. He actually has a book, which I then read. This is Personalization, or This is Personal, which is about delivering emails. It's like email personalization and how to send the right message at the right time. So not really like website personalization in the same way. But we did a lot of experimentation this year with segmenting our Black Friday messaging after the conversations that I had with him and reading this book. And whereas previously we had done like 1 Black Friday campaign, and this time we had 4. I didn't see ROI from all that effort. We had the same number of sales that we had the prior year. So I don't know what that means exactly, right? Like we put a lot of extra effort into having very targeted copy on like, however many emails we had, like 5 or something over the week, and it didn't work. And I don't know, like I think this year we're about to do a Global Accessibility Awareness Day sale, and we decided we weren't going to do that because we were like, it takes so much extra time to come up with all the extra copy, the extra images, the extra whatever. And we're like, we didn't see it work. So I don't know that means it can't. Maybe we just didn't do it right, or that particular instance just didn't appeal to them, but maybe over the long term. We have done a lot more personalization on emails, though, like some of our follow-up emails, when somebody opts in, if we know what industry they're in, or we can tell that they have a .gov or .edu, they will sometimes get like different emails just through our regular welcome sequence. And that seems to work okay. But yeah.
So I think it's really interesting with email marketing personalization because it needs to be done at scale, I think. So our previous agency to the one we run now, we used to manage the email marketing for Royal Caribbean, the cruise line. And they had hundreds of different types of emails going out every single week, all personalized, all segmented, and done at scale. And that works really, really, really well.
So where do you feel like the line is there, right? Like, is there an email list count? Like, let's say you need to have at least 10,000 people on your email list before it's worth putting effort into this, or 50,000, or whatever that number might be. And under this number, what's most important is sending emails. like where do you see that line?
So I think you're talking tens of thousands. So most email marketing campaigns where you're personalizing, you're going to A/B test, and then you send out a small amount of emails, and then based on that, it's going to send out the rest of the emails given the highest performing one. And to do that, you need tens of thousands of emails to be able to. I don't know how big your list is. It's probably
So
slightly
our
bigger than
list
ours
is
right
a little
now,
bit over
but
5,000. So
yeah,
we occasionally have done some A/B testing, but yeah, it's really hard because it's like, because then you get into like, okay, well, if we only have a 40% open rate, it's like the numbers get smaller and smaller, right?
And that also applies to websites. So
You
what
need
is
a
the
certain amount
level
of
of
website
traffic
traffic.
that you think above which people should consider implementing personalization, in the sense that there will be enough data to show ROI, or do you not see it that way?
yeah. So I wouldn't see it that way. I'd say 0 is the number, because you're trying to get that one-on-one relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
You're trying to understand them, and it doesn't matter. The scale of the traffic doesn't really matter. I mean, it might do if you're trying to run a machine learning algorithms to understand people that bought X product over here, right? So if you're Amazon, the more traffic that you can get on that, and understanding that, the more accurate your algorithms are going to be, and the more accurate your responses are going to be. But when you're just talking about personalization, trying to convert somebody, that relationship is just with them. That's what personalization is. It's a one-to-one relationship with somebody, going, understand you, understand where you come from, who you are, what you need, and I'm going to push you towards making that sale.
And what if you get it wrong? I'm always worried about segmenting people and them sort of seeing content that is not correctly calibrated. How do you handle that? Or do you worry about that at all? Is that a problem?
I mean, is it a problem? Because if you don't try and personalize, they're potentially seeing the wrong content anyway, and
That's
you're in
true.
the same situation. So, I only see it as pretty much win-win. And again, it's small steps, and it's trying to understand. Not trying to go too deep and not trying to be too clever. So actually, you can do a lot of it just with the basics. You don't need like whirlpools of stuff going on and circles of circles to make this stuff happen. And actually, the music platforms always be really bad at this, and they've got better. Or maybe it's because I don't use Spotify anymore. But you'd end up them just playing the same tunes, or taking you down the hole of, you've liked this tune, and therefore you're gonna like this. Even when you go on Amazon, it's like, you bought kettles, I'm going to show you more kettles. I don't want more kettles. I bought a kettle.
I'm good on
You
kettles.
saw me buy a kettle. I bought a kettle on your platform. Don't show me kettles. I only need one kettle. I'm not going to need another kettle for 2 years, but come back in 2 years and show me a kettle. Maybe think about that. So I think as long as you keep it relatively shallow, and again, you're just trying to remember to nudge.
And where do you? I feel so divided on this when I experience it, and I see a little JavaScript load time when I go to a pricing page, and I know that somebody's split testing some pricing on me. And I know that if I turn on a VPN, maybe I'll experience different pricing. Please tell me your advice when it comes to price testing based on personalization and segmentation.
Well, I think you, as a product owner, you need to do that price testing to understand. I would argue that probably most people wouldn't notice, and you're noticing because and that actually we think that people know more than they actually do. So what I would recommend is you carry on price testing, because that's going to drive your revenue, and you don't worry if somebody sees a slightly different type of content. When we do it, and we're making an update, we're running through a sprint right now to add a setting to delay JavaScript execution until the page is fully rendered, which might be useful for some people. It's just in the next sprint of work. But I think, I would just keep doing it because that's the point of it, and you're optimizing, aren't you? So yeah.
Yeah. I think it is interesting to say, like, it's hard because we're like developers, right? We live in code land. Or so we notice stuff. Like I was on a website at one point a couple of years ago, and literally my company logo was there. And I was like, what the heck? So then I'm like inspecting the code. And then I'm like reading the JavaScript in the view source because I want to figure out what tool are they using to do this. So then I go, but like most people would just be like, wow, that's so cool. They have my
Or
logo.
that's so creepy.
Yeah, or that's so creepy, right? So like that kind of goes back to that balancing the personalization with privacy and that kind of stuff. Do we think so? You mentioned that PersonalizeWP doesn't use any cookies. So is your solution like cookie proof on what we're seeing happening in the future? And how does like GDPR come into play and other privacy laws around this kind of stuff? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, so we use local storage rather than cookies to store any information that we're storing in the browser. And typically what we're storing is like an ID, like a random unique ID and string for that user.
Do people
so that
have
we can
to
recognize
opt
it when
in
they
to
come
this?
back. Because it uses JavaScript, it's usually to do with your cookie preferences anyway, your preferences for, tracking and privacy and analytics. So it's an analytics cookie, an analytics script that could be turned off if you choose not to do it. So we use cookie yes on our sites, and that allows you to make sure that it understands what tracking scripts are on your website. And then, if you click no, you don't want to be tracked, then that's not going to track and that's not going to work. So GDPR is a really good one. We work with a client right now, and PII is so important to them that they don't actually store any or take any customer data whatsoever. It's the only client I know where they have no customer data, not even an email sign-up form. But we're only taking information that the user has given to us. So we are only building information out on their user profile, the visitor profile, where they've submitted a form, for instance. So the website already has that data. Or if they've completed a purchase, then they have in their WooCommerce order, then we know that order data. Or if they've logged into the website and they've got a user account. So there's nothing different to what you're doing on a normal website.
And how do you take it from your website and connect it to the other pieces that you have going on? We have so many different tools that we use, like email marketing and I don't know, dunning, like credit card dunning services that try to recapture things. That, like, it seems like only personalizing the website it might be a
Lost opportunity.
a lost opportunity. Yeah. So how do you feel like it's important to have a holistic view of this, or do you think that like websites, just starting with the website is a really good start?
I think for most people, just starting with a website is a really good start, particularly if you just got an e-commerce store, right? So, actually 99% of your transactions will be going through that store anyway. We're working on a data export feature that you already have all of the data in your WordPress database. You can export it at any time and you can put it into any other solutions. What we've seen in the past, and we've worked with clients that have customer data platforms, and that's the ability for you to take data from all the different platforms that you're using, and they're going to stitch it together, and then you're going to create lookalike profiles and things like that. And that's really a bit scary. And some people don't like that. It's like when you've been talking about toothbrushes, and suddenly you see an advert for toothbrushes as you go around the web. And I'm pretty sure it's coincidence, but I also know that actually there's a lot of companies stitching together information from different platforms in the background. So you could export that data into your own customer data platform or to your own email marketing platform as well. And you can put it into there and you can personalize there as well. We're on a bit of a journey. We launched in February this year. It seems to have flown by because there's been the Easter holidays as well. But we've got quite a long roadmap to move forward with, so including things like content variations, where you have fallback content and you have variants based on the kind of audience that you're looking at. We're going to try and link profiles together so that we can do sort of that understanding, that omni-channel term, where you're looking at it on a mobile and actually you've got a different visitor profile because you're looking at a different device as you were for your desktop. So obviously we want to try and link those profiles together as well. So, but web is our first focus. I'm sure that over time we're going to be linking out to other platforms and email in particular, because I think there's a real opportunity there.
Yeah, that sort of reminded me as you're saying, like the content variations. That's something we've done quite a bit for our customers, not necessarily for ourselves, which is creating a custom post type and then having like custom Gutenberg blocks that have default content. But if there's a certain URL parameter, so they can share out different URL parameters to one page and it will totally change some of the copy on there and pull from the custom post type instead. But I think for sure, I don't know if this is on your roadmap, but like having the ability to pass like through Gravity Forms or integrating with WP Fusion, I think like those would be really prime, because I feel like Zach, like you said, it has to go beyond the website. And you probably do want that data to go over. You know, an interesting one, we had Ronnie Burt on very recently on the podcast, and he was talking about some of the ideas that they're exploring at Gravatar. He's the head of Gravatar at Automatic. And they were thinking about having a way potentially for people to have interest in Gravatar that other services could be like, oh, we got these as a flag, and then respond to those. So that could be interesting, right? To see if there's other places outside of like the ad networks that you could pull people's interest from.
Yeah,
with certain
absolutely.
content.
Yeah. That'd be really good. It becomes a bit hard when you're pulling data in that people haven't already given you. So one of the challenges, I think, and it's probably some of the things we'll address when if we look at more enterprise businesses, is the scale of data. So the amount of website visits and obviously how that's going to impact. So at the moment we have a setting for data retention period. So you can set your data retention period for smaller amounts, and you don't need to have it all in your WordPress website. So bringing in that scale and doing everything in WordPress, and obviously like WordPress is so interesting, isn't it? Because some people run their entire business on WordPress and they have everything in there. They have newsletter plugins. You can do newsletters in there. You can do CRM in there. You can do things like we're doing with personalization. And some people prefer other platforms as well. So I think there's a space for everything for the right type of customer. But we will be integrating with other things. As I leave tonight, I'll be talking to Mark Westgard at WS Form tonight about integrating with WS Form, because we already have integration with Gravity Forms and Ninja Forms. So that's going to be the next one on the list.
So we are about at time, and I feel like it might be good. We always like to wrap up with best advice. Paul, do you want to go first? What's your best advice for someone who is trying to get started with personalization and isn't sure what to do?
Come and talk to Filter. Come and talk to me, and we'll tell you what we should be doing. I would start thinking about personas and the type of customers you have, and what your outcome is. So, what are you trying to get them to do? Because I think I've mentioned it several times on here. I do apologise for pushing the message home about nudging people towards conversion. You are trying to nudge them towards conversion. So, if you're trying to do that, you're trying to ensure that they trust you. And they understand that you understand them, and you know what they need. So what can you do to be able to trust them, for them to trust you in order to make a sale, essentially to convert?
My best advice, I think, is to do anything, literally anything. I've gone down this rabbit hole so many times, and I was excited to talk to you today, Paul, because it's time to go back in and try it again. I have a marketing person now that has less of a rabbit hole syndrome than I do, and I'm excited because we do have these pages that are like /for/education. So we have landing pages for education. We have landing pages for developers. And guess what? If somebody clicks on this page from our homepage, they're probably an educator or somebody associated with education. It's so simple to add the next step, which is to personalize the content. So I'm going to take my own best advice, which is do anything, get started. And so I'm excited to check out your plugin personally.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So my advice on that, like stemming off of both of that, right, is identify who your people are. And then if you don't have some way of letting them tell you without them really feeling like they're letting you tell, right? You either need those use case kind of pages, or you need like industry pages, or what I was talking about before, where either having like buttons or a drop down that's just like I am and then makes what just target having one part of your website respond to that. Like that's a good place. And then you can sort of see if you do, I think Hotjar is fabulous for watching recording sessions. And I think that's a good way to track, is your personalization working? Because you could make one change that responds to where someone has told you what they are, and then watch and see, do they spend more time on site when you do that? Do they read more content? Do you get more conversions? And that's, that little testing along the way, I think is really important.
I think it's also worth going just having your eyes open to what the bigger companies are doing, because they're all doing this, right? So this, is trying to work out when you're on a site, how are they personalizing that site to you already? So if you're on Amazon, it tells you your name. Hello, you came back. This is what you bought previously. These are the kettles you might be interested in. Well, they've already bought a kettle, and I know that. But how are they personalizing to?
But how was your delivery? And similarly, like after you make a sale on your website, the next time somebody visits your website, you could have a follow-up survey ready up in front and center that says, "Hey, how are you liking things? We know that you just bought a product."
Yeah, there's a load of use cases, but I think you just got to pick and choose what works for you. It's not right for everything, and you don't want to over personalize. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to get to that creepy stage. You want to get to the point where people feel comfortable and they trust you.
I really want to see your website tell me, "Welcome back, Amber."
I will.
You can do that just for me, right?
Just for you, absolutely. Well, with your address, and that's what you want to.
Maybe not my
kids'
address.
Names and like.
Paul, Amber, I've been Zach. That's been a wrap for this this episode of WP Product Talk. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. Where can people find you online?
Thanks for the opportunity. It's brilliant to talk to both of you. You can find me on personalizewp.com. That's with a Z. It's spelt the American way.
That's Z for the US people.
Z. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But we've got the S as well. So if you make a mistake, you'll find us there. You could also find us at filter.agency as well. And I'm probably plastered all over LinkedIn and things like that, on Twitter. So please do reach out. I'm interested in hearing any feedback that people might have and any questions about how they might personalize.
Great. Well, thanks again, Paul. And that's it for season 4 of WP Product Talk. So that's the last episode until June 12th, where we will be coming to you live from WordCamp Europe in Torino, Italy. And I'm really excited about that. And
we are all going to be in the
whole
same
crew's going to be there.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yep. So special thanks to Post Status for being our green room. If you've enjoyed this show, please do us a big favor and hit the like button, the subscribe button, all those magical things, whether you're on Twitter or YouTube or somewhere else on the web where you can find us. And make sure to share this episode with your friends, reference the show in your email newsletters. And of course, we are looking forward to seeing everyone live from WordCamp EU on June 12th.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.